to Behind the Badge. I'm Chief Alan Rodville at Scottsdale Police Department. With me is Ms. Chris Fasal, our community liaison. How are we doing, Chris?
Good, thank you.
Good. And here we are in March.
Spring training.
Springtime. And we've had some really unseasonable weather.
Oh, it's beautiful already. I feel so bad for all the people back east and Chicago and New York. It was freezing.
We feel bad, but at the same time.
But we're glad we're here.
Exactly.
Wish you were here with us.
Had a very successful parada. It was a wonderful event, beautiful weather, of course. So that was exciting. And I guess right now we have spring training getting started. So we've got the crowds coming in. We host the world champion San Francisco Giants. And so we're excited about that. And we expect to have large crowds.
That's baseball.
Well, the Giants do play football, but in a different city.
That's right. See? Okay.
Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today?
Today we're going to talk about fraud and some of the things that our viewers and our citizens might be experiencing, and some events and incidents that are occurring that are taking advantage of our citizenry. And so we brought the fraud unit in today to talk about some of these scams that are happening. And I think it was an apropos time to discuss some of the things that they should be aware of.
You know, I think one of the interesting things about this particular topic is it's an ever-changing game.
It is.
As we look to investigations and enforcing the issues that pop up, other things pop up around them. So you deal with one thing and then all of a sudden it somehow transforms into a different kind of fraud operation. So people really need to be on their toes and be warned. And so part of today's program is telling folks what to look out for, and always remember, if it's too good to be true, it usually is.
Yes, and if it doesn't make any sense, just just say, give me a number and I will call you back. Because if it's legit, they're going to be there on the other end when you call back. So.
And by the way, I just said if it's too good to be true, it usually is. And it usually is not true.
Let's
make sure we clear that.
Exactly.
So our guests today are our fraud unit members. I'm going to have Sergeant Joel Lewis, who's the supervisor of the unit, introduce his staff and explain what their duties are.
Sure.
Welcome, Sarge. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us back.
Pleasure.
Yes, we have the Financial Crimes Unit, and the unit's comprised of a sergeant and 7 detectives currently. A lot of cases, as you know. It's just an ever-changing environment. So part of the challenge we have with that is, because everything's changing, the cases are all changing, is to have a selected group of detectives who really have the experience and the world experience to look at a case, figure out how to investigate it, figure out how to get into prosecution. So I have 2 of them with me here today, and they're all senior detectives. One's Detective Michelle Matlin and Detective Guy Milanovitz.
Hi.
And in kind of the fraud world, we have subsets that we investigate. We have the electronic scammers, and we have major economic crimes. And so each of them are kind of subject matter experts at certain things. Michelle, very, very good, and very good at credit card fraud, counterfeiting, bank fraud. And Guy, over here on my right, he's major economic crime stuff. So if you think in securities violations, trust documents, things with lawyers and wills and all the stuff that kind of goes above my head, that's why I'm very thankful to have Guy with the unit. And so they're both very good at what they do, and it's exciting to have them.
Welcome. Great to have you here. Before we get started, a little bit about your background, Sarge.
Sure.
Tell us about background, how you end up in this position.
Well, prior to being here, I was a banker for 14 years. Enjoyed being in the financial sector. That's what my business degree's in, and I enjoyed that world. And I had the opportunity to try out for a police department. It was kind of I started this later in life at 36. I was the oldest guy in my academy class, and I asked my wife permission to become a cop. She said no. I did it anyways.
Good for you.
And you have to edit that part out, pal.
Right. So, and then coming to financial crimes, I was a financial crimes detective. Which is kind of like coming home for me.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love the environment in the world, as do my detectives. They're very good at what they do, and so I'm always excited and glad to be here.
It's always fascinating to find out the background of our personnel, because
it's very,
very lots of talent, lots of experience brought into the organization.
A lot of life experience,
which is amazing. What an incredible fit it is to go from the banking industry, become a police officer, have a career as a police officer, and then move in as a supervisor in the financial crimes area. So it's great having you in that unit. Michelle, a little bit about your background.
Well, before I started here, I'm also coming up on my 12th anniversary over the summer. Excuse me. So I was a recent college graduate, and I spent about 5 years on the road, and then I went over to persons crimes, where I spent an additional about 5 years in persons crimes. And one of the best things they say about being at the police department is you can always try something different and try something new. So I was becoming really comfortable with what I was doing over there, and I thought it was time for a change, for me to step out of my comfort level and to try something new. And I started an interest the last 6 months or so that I was working in persons crimes with, coming over to the fraud unit, and I had talked to some people, and I thought, you know what, I think that I should probably try that, because I haven't done anything like that in my career before, and that's how I ended up, and I'm going on 2 years now.
Super.
You know, what's really interesting is here in Scottsdale, of course, we're primarily property crime community. I mean, we're a very low violent crime rate in our city, thankfully. And typically, in most police departments, you find expertise going from property crime and developing skill sets and moving into persons crimes. But here in Scottsdale, I find sometimes the exact opposite is true, because not more challenging, because certainly persons crimes are challenging, but we see that because there's so much more in terms of property crime investigations here that we're able to do, you find the expertise moving the opposite direction. It's a fascinating phenomenon, if you've been around policing as long as I have, to see how people move through organizations. And so what you're telling me really is surprising to people outside of this organization, but inside this organization you understand it as well. You see exactly why you took your expertise and brought it in this direction. So it's terrific having you in that role.
Thank you.
And thank you. Guy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Chief. I'm like Sergeant Lewis. I entered the academy at 36. I'm a retired Air Force officer. I decided this would be my second career. I gravitated toward the financial crimes unit because I have a bachelor's in business and a master of science in management with a minor in accounting, so it lends itself to financial crimes. We spend a lot of times looking at financial records. So I really like working with it. I also have a business background, so that lends to the investigations of business frauds and that type of thing. And I've recently had parents that needed caregivers and that type of thing, and we set up trusts, and a lot of people are doing that nowadays. So I investigate breaches in trust, that type of thing. So I really enjoy it.
Wow, that's some detailed work. You're also a pilot, correct?
That is correct.
Which is kind of cool. So on the
Just
side.
like I tell you all the time, don't we have the best of the best? We're
I
like
know that.
Miramar from Top Gun. We always have the best of the best people in our department. I don't think our citizens really realize. They just think, oh, they're just a cop. They just don't understand the breadth of background that these guys have.
Pretty impressive. So tell us a little about what we need to know in terms of what's going on in the world of fraud.
Well, very timely right now to have the invitation to come here and talk about this, because it's tax season. And while that's a kick in the gut for a lot of people, it's double so if they end up becoming the victims of a fraud with IRS type thing. And we work almost daily with IRS investigators, Secret Service, and FBI, so we're constantly working with them. And Michelle has some information for our citizens to talk about that.
Okay, Michelle.
So I'm going to start with talking about the most recent IRS scam that we're seeing, and I know a lot of people have gotten these phone calls, gotten the voicemails. What they're doing is they're calling you and they're telling you they're from the IRS, and their main scam is saying, you owe us a lot of money. If you don't give us this money, then something's going to happen to you. So some of the things that they're saying is you're going to be arrested, you're going to have your license revoked or suspended, or we're going to turn off your utilities. So they're being very aggressive with calling our citizens and saying that they're from the IRS. And what they want you to do is they're asking you then to go to your nearest store, and they're asking you to either MoneyGram them some money, or they're asking you to get a Green Dot card. So the Green Dot card, you don't have to ship that anywhere. So you could go into a store, you could buy a Green Dot card, you can put some money on it, whatever amount they're telling you, and then they'll call you back and they'll ask you for the number on the Green Dot card or the PIN number. So what they can do is you don't ever have to send them the actual card. As with the MoneyGram, you have to send it someplace. You just give them the numbers on the card and they can drain the amount via the phone or over the internet. So a lot of people are falling for that scam. The IRS is never going to call you and threaten an arrest, suspension of your license, or ask you to pay in a Green Dot or a MoneyGram. So some of what they're doing is the scammers are using a name and they're giving you a badge number. But what they're using very common names. So they may be saying, I'm Officer Johnson, I'm Officer Smith, something pretty common, but they're gonna give you a fake name, they're gonna give you a fake badge number when they're calling you. What they also may do, and this may get our citizens to believe that they are actually from the IRS, is they'll they'll recite the last 4 of your social security number. But think about how many times that we're asked for the last 4 of our social. There's a lot of it is out there. A lot of people know what the last 4 are. They just may not know what the full social security number is. But these scammers may recite the last 4, making you believe a little bit more that maybe these people are from the IRS. And what they're also doing is they're going to spoof the number coming up on your caller ID. It will be a 1-800 number, and they'll spoof it. You can go online and spoof numbers. It's very easy to do that these days, where it'll look like the IRS is actually calling you. They may dial from most of the time it's an out-of-country area code, but using an online program, they're able to spoof their number through the internet, and then they're calling you, and it looks like it's the IRS calling. So on your caller ID, it'll say 1-800, and it may even say IRS. So people are more apt to believe that the IRS is calling you if your caller ID says so.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then what they may also do while they're on the phone with you is ask you for your email address, and then they're going to send you a bogus email. So what their email is going to say is it's going to say something similar to what they're telling you over the phone. And it's easy to get whatever kind of email address you want these days. You can get IRS at whateveryouwant.gov. I mean, it's not hard to get an email address from all these different companies. So people may believe, okay, well now they know my phone number, they have my last 4 of my social security number, and now I'm getting this real email from the IRS, so this must be true. And a lot of times what they're also doing is after you get off the phone with the scammer that's pretending to be from the IRS, is they're following up with another scammer who's calling you. So this time it's going to be a detective, an officer, a sergeant from the local police department. They're going to pretend that they are from the police department, or they may even pretend that they're from your local utility company or even from motor vehicle department. So people are believing, well, my goodness, I had the IRS calling me and they're saying I could get arrested, I can get my license suspended, and now the police are calling me, or the motor vehicle department's calling me, and they're saying if you don't do this, we're going to shut off your utilities, revoke your license, suspend your license, or you're going to go to jail. So people are falling for this. We get a lot of phone calls on this regularly. So some of the things that we could do if you get these phone calls is, one of the main things is if you think that you may actually owe the IRS money, that it's actually true you do, the IRS is asking you to call them. So what you can do is you can call the IRS at 1-800-829-1040, and you can speak to an IRS agent, and you could ask them, hey, do I owe some money? Because I'm not sure here. I got this phone call from you guys. Can you clear that up for me? And the IRS will be able to clear it up for you. So like I said, they're not going to call you soliciting money via MoneyGram or Green Dot, but you can call them and you can ask them if you owe them some money. If you do not owe them money and you feel like there's a scam, then there's 2 different ways that they would like you to report it. You could call the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. It's quite the name, but the number that you can call them at is 1-800-366-4484, or you could also report a scam online at the Federal Trade Commission at www.ftc.gov, and this is coming straight from the IRS. They are aware of the scams that are out there, but the scams are coming in from so many different countries, so many different people, so many different phone numbers that I think it's hard for them to keep track of it unless we report it to them. So please, if you do think that you are getting a call from a scam, make sure you call the IRS to double check first. Do not send any money via MoneyGram or via Green Dot. And you can always call us because we are always available. One of us is available to take a phone call and to talk to anybody who may have some questions.
Okay.
And we'll put your number up at the end of the program.
Yeah, but I was just going to ask, Detective, would it be, I mean, like, would you not go to if somebody said I owed money, then the first thing I would say is, let me check into this or whatever. Wouldn't you go to the person that did your taxes? Aren't they responsible if you have back taxes somehow that you didn't know of? Wouldn't they be the first person to contact as well?
They will know. A lot of people, though, do their own taxes.
Okay.
So if you're one of those people, your accountant, if you owe, will know. And so if you do use an accountant, then yes, contact them to see if there is some money that you owe. But if you do your own taxes, you may feel that maybe you didn't do them right and something was wrong. So you can go to your accountant if you use one, but if you don't, contact the IRS first before sending any money.
I'm sorry, one more question. Wouldn't you get a letter from the IRS I mean, there is an official letter that comes to your house from the IRS saying that there's a discrepancy and a number you can call, because Isn't that true? So they wouldn't call you just out of the blue on the telephone, tell you, go pay this and get a card at CVS or anything.
True. They will send you a letter in the mail. The IRS will never call you, and that will never be their first point of contact to you saying that you owe money. They will send letters. Okay. Correct.
Wow, that's fascinating. So then there's a variation of the same thing involving banks notifying you that, and sometimes you even have accounts at those banks saying, reaffirm some information for us, and banks don't do any of that online.
They never
Right.
do that, and we see a lot of it right now with texts. Any way of communicating with our citizens, they're figuring it out. I get a text from Wells Fargo. I don't have a Wells Fargo account, saying that my account was compromised. You call back in, which I did, of course, because now I'm playing along with them. You call back in, and they want you to put in your card number. Well, then when you do that, they have your card number. So never trust a text, never trust an email, never trust a phone call, because if you ever have problems, drive to your bank, go to your bank, call your personal banker, or simply look in the back of the card that you have, call that number. They will know if something's a problem. Never trust any of the other communication.
Good advice. Good advice. What else do you have for us?
Well, you know, I think Guy's going to talk about that. It's just that we constantly talk about different things, and one of the things is we talk about the duty to protect our children. We also have a duty to protect our people who are now 50 or better, or in a way that they can't take care of themselves. And Guy and Michelle actually work a lot on that. And so Guy has some information reference caretaker fraud.
Thank you. You know, Chief, I wanted to talk and Chris, I wanted to talk just a little bit about caregiver fraud. You know, as we all get older, whether it's our parents or it's planning for our future when we get older and can't always take care of ourselves, whether it be from a diminished mental capacity or a disability that we have, you know, we need somebody maybe at some point in our life to give us care, to help us with what we're doing. We have options. We can go into a home or assisted living facility, or we can stay in our own home and maybe have a caregiver come in and help us with our daily routines, feed us, bathe us, whatever it takes to get us through the day. What we've seen lately is a trend, a little bit of a trend, where we've had a lot of caretaker fraud. And I want to address this a little bit because at some point, everybody either has to get somebody to help take care of their parents, or they're going to have to make arrangements for somebody to take care of them. And so we want to give people at least some opportunity to think about when you have to make that decision, what should you consider at the time you want to hire a caregiver. Some of the cases we've worked on, we've found that the caregiver befriends the person they're giving care to. We've seen account takeovers where they become so friendly they get put on bank accounts. Next thing you know, the bank account is deleted. Sometimes we find that they get a power of attorney, oftentimes from somebody who has Alzheimer's or something and really had no ability to give them a power of attorney, but they did. They go to the bank, open up credit cards, charge the credit cards. We've even had people buy cars under the names of the people with whom they're giving care.
Wow.
So what can we do to protect the person who's receiving the care if we're a family member? Or how can we set it up if we know that in the future we're going to need somebody to give us care? What can we do for ourselves to ensure that somebody's monitoring our caregiver, somebody's making sure that things are getting paid for, but nothing's being stolen, that assets that were saved and worked hard for all their life are there for their care as we get older? So I have a small list of things, and I'd like to read the list if I could, of things you can do or just be cognizant of when you're looking for a caregiver. And once you've hired that caregiver, what should you be monitoring at the time? So I just want to go through a quick list of that. And I would say, first of all, if money's available, consider a professional caregiver facility or somebody who's licensed, bonded, trained, and insured to give in-home care service. That's number one, because now you've got something to fall back on should there become a problem. If you're the person who has hired the caregiver for someone else and you're the responsible party for that person, you should be monitoring their bank accounts to see that the use of the monies in the bank account is appropriate for what you believe the care is happening. Make sure that you're the one writing the checks. Oftentimes it's advisable to take the person who's receiving the care off the account so that they don't have control of their own monies. What happens oftentimes is they become the only person that they see or interact with is their caregiver. and they have an affinity toward them, and then they let them into their lives, and before you know it, they're running the bank account, they're taking cash out, they're providing for themselves as well as the caregiver on the caregiver's money. So watch the bank accounts. That's very important. Look to see what's happening. Increased spending, excessive cash withdrawals, that type of thing. One of the other things I caution against is don't give out a general power of attorney to the caretaker, because with that, they can do anything. They can get credit. They can open up bank accounts. They can buy a car. They can buy a house. We've even had that happen, where they bought themselves a house with the person with whom they're caring for's money. Something that they saved all their life for, so that they can be taken care of in their old age, and the caregiver has bought themselves a home. Just tragic. Can set up a trust. If you have the ability to do that, I recommend a trust where a trustee is appointed, and those financial matters, the bills, the gatekeeping, if you will, of the finances of the person being cared for are handled by a third party. Sometimes a trustee is a member of the family, and sometimes it's a law firm, or sometimes it's a bank. But I do recommend a trust. It's a legal entity, and it separates the finances from the caregiver and the person receiving care. Look for signs that the person who's giving the caregiver who's being gifted by the person receiving the care. You see a lot of gifts. Oh yeah, I bought them a truck, or I gave them this expensive painting in the house. Those are inappropriate things for the person receiving care to give the caregiver if maybe they're not of sound mind. As we get older, one of the things we've noticed is they become so dependent on the person, they're so thankful that they're there taking care of them, that they start giving away their possessions to them. And the reality is that's a person you're paying to take care of you. That's their job. So we want to watch for that. And then really we want to limit the dependence on the caregiver as much as possible. If you're a family member and you've hired a caregiver for your parent or whatever, check on your parent. Go out and talk to them. Look around the house. See what's changed. Talk to the caregiver on a regular basis. It's important to know that they know that there's somebody monitoring them and watching them. We work hard all our lives to have a nest egg to take care of us so we don't become a burden on our children, or if we're disabled, we want to make sure that we can be taken care of in our daily needs. We don't want to give that money and all those savings to somebody who's not entitled to it. We pay them for their services, but we don't want to give things away to them because that's ours. And so I would just caution people, when you select a caregiver, think of those things. And I think there'll be less likely any kind of fraud involved if you pay attention.
That's some great information.
And as you know, Chief, part of our mission is educating our citizens and outreach. So any one of our citizens can call at any time, speak to me or speak to one of my specialist detectives. If I don't have the answer for them or direct them in a way, or we don't have a case for them, we're more than happy just to give good general direction and help navigate through some of these things. And we have PCIS who can help with that too. So the world of fraud is so incredibly broad and so many variations. It's just, it's hard to keep up with. So that's also part of our education when the citizen calls, say, I'm experiencing this. And we like to hear that. We get it out to us. We get all the other financial detectives in the state. And it's very, very helpful.
I was going to mention that. I think that one of the things that, certainly in this kind of a crime, is it's so far-reaching. It's international. And I was going to ask about the kind of relationships we have with federal authorities and local authorities in terms of combating this issue. And the sharing of information, of course. Yeah,
we do. Just yesterday, I met with an FBI task force, and all the stakeholders from the federal partners were there. We have people embedded with the Secret Service. We do cases with them, and IRS, and my gosh, just about every one of them besides our state and local partners. And if I were a person considering getting into an enterprise, a criminal conspiracy with somebody, I would be very, very concerned that the Scottsdale Police Department is in partnership with the Secret Service, the FBI, the IRS, and all those agencies, because the relationship is fantastic. It's first name basis. They have our cell phones, we have their cell phones, and there's nothing we can't do.
Yeah, there's such a feeling about sharing information today that didn't exist many years ago. First of all, we didn't have the capabilities of sharing information like we do today with the technologies we have available today. but also sometimes we kept things to ourselves, and it was sort of foolish not to share information with other people. And so now we have a whole different attitude in our industry that sharing that information, getting that out quickly is most important. Educating the public,
yes, sir.
Making potential victims aware of the pitfalls is critical. Where do citizens get information about current things that are happening, other than when something happens to somebody, they hear about it? Is there some place citizens can go online to find out what the current scams are?
Yeah, there's a lot of online financial crimes type based and scam alerts, but I always recommend going to the website of the Internal Revenue Service.
Okay.
They have what they call a Consumer Protection Handbook that'll go through all these different type of scams, and that's through the Department of Justice. So we know for sure when we go to one of those websites that they're going to have the proper information, they have all the phone numbers to call, all the links that are appropriate. So when we really get our foundational education, it's always through the federal government. It's always through an association that we belong to versus kind of the businesses that are out there. Not that they're not good, but for our citizens, they know if they type in FBI, the very first thing that's coming up is the FBI or IRS. It's going to be the IRS. Department of Justice. The Department of Justice, their website alone is amazing for that.
Do we have anything on the our city webpage under fraud that maybe are any of these updates ever put on there as well?
No, a lot of it is, well, first of all, on our city webpage, they can contact me directly.
Okay, perfect.
And for tips, for referrals, for complaints, or just they can email me directly or call me directly.
Okay.
But as far as links, we don't have. There's a reason why we don't link it out to these different things. But
not necessarily linking. I'm sorry, Sarge.
Oh,
I meant like
trending fraud updates.
Yeah. Do you guys put anything on your fraud page or anything?
I don't. And last time you had us here, we were doing the trending fraud alerts, and we can continue to provide you with that. And
absolutely, we can get it maybe up there.
And we can use it if we can't do it online, but we can also get out the newsletters that get sent out to district stations. And anybody that's interested in being on that newsletter list, you just have to send your email to the local crime prevention officers, and they'll send you that that email on a regular basis, and we can do that.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you guys very much.
So much information.
Oh my Lord.
28 minutes is kind of fast to do this. That's why I was so glad that they wanted to be our guests again.
We just highlighted a couple of things. We didn't highlight everything that's going on there. So really the cautionary message here is that if you see something you're questioning, ask before you act. Tell people, we'll call you back. Get a phone number, we'll call you back. We'll check on this. And because chances are, the phone call, email, any of these things are just frauds, especially when they want you to either invest your money first, give us a number so we can invest your money and we'll send you back a bigger check. That just doesn't happen. So thank you guys. Really appreciate all of you being here, and good to see you all again. Absolutely. Well, that ends our show.
It does.
For another month. It's great being back, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Until then, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon.